Let's see if we can get lethal here. Heal trigger, which kind of, you know, means that our opponent's damage trigger would pass, but okay, lucky. That didn't work out, so let's see if we can finish the game here. One last swing. Hey yo, how's it going everyone? Entropy here today with another video. Today, we are going to profile the Kagero deck that dominates all Kagero. Now, of course, it is still Overlord the Clan, but with a new wave, and that is Nouvelle Vague. Yes, after a couple months, our wonderful subscribers and commenters, finally, I think we've gotten the pronunciation right, and hopefully we've gotten a list that is useful and helpful to you all. So without further ado, let's begin with the new wave. So one thing's for sure, my list is very different from a lot of other people's lists, and I will justify myself. I'll say it is very unique. If you find it bad because it's different, well, you know, give it some thought. If it's still bad to you, well, you know, if it doesn't work, if it doesn't work. But I'll explain my reasoning. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't, right? But I will say it's very different from the conventional build. Now, grade 1 and grade 2, I think is pretty similar. You play your Conroe because Conroe is amazing. Fetch any grade 1 you're in the build. You know, PG, and we can afford to play two different types of PGs because, well, you will see that your build, if you are especially playing for Dauntless or you want to go with the Dauntless build, you do want your Rhino Cross, you do want your Break Ride turn, right? So you do want to absorb the damage, even if you aren't playing the Limit Break 4, you know, Break Ride focused build. Having this means that you won't be damage denied as much because there are a lot of crit centric builds, and it means that you get to use Counter Blast, which you will see that this deck really needs. But in some cases, like, you know, if you really don't want the damage, you still have the chance to go tech that one copy of Bari that you might want to see. So it is, generally speaking, consistently, you know, 75% of your Sentinels are the Limit Break 4 version, which lets you soak up some damage. But if you really do want that damage deny, well, if you really do want to be safe rather than sorry, you can always still tech out that Bari and protect yourself. So in some matchups like Reiji and OTT, definitely Bari is really helpful. But in some other matchups where you do want your big combo turn, you want to soak up some damage so you can actually counter blast and do some damage, well then, you know, you want your 3 Seal Dragon Rhino Crosses. So I think that's the main difference. Because OTT with Battle Sisters crits is not unpopular. If you get put to 5 early and then you just get, you know, sniped with Talon Tom, well, PGs won't help you, but Bari will at least block you from reaching 5 or too early, so your opponent's Talon Tom won't be as effective. So just one particular matchup I think nobody really mentions, but is really important. We're going to be playing 4 Gojos and 1 Kersey, you know, helping you filter. Before you might be playing up to 8. Now your space is a bit tight, but it still helps you definitely filter. One of the key things is that, you know, like Royals, your grade 4 is actually playable if your Vanguard is the grade 3 blaster or whatever the condition is. Kagero, you can't. The grade 4 Nouvelle, if it's in your hand and you can't really call it out, or you don't really, you know, have any skills to do with it, then it's dead. It's a dead card. You can't play it out. You either ride it so you can call out another copy, or it's just stuck in your hand. So especially in those cases, sometimes ditching and drawing with Gojo is valuable. And lastly, Nouvelle Roman Dragon. This is one of the key parts of the Nouvelle Vague package. When placed, if your Vanguard is grade 2 or less, you can return a Nouvelle Vague from your hand to your deck and add a grade 3 from your deck to your hand. So it means that if you have this card in your hand, well, even if you draw into a grade 4 before your grade 3 turns, well, you can toss it back in to search for any grade 3 you want. And this is really helpful, you know, whether it's searching for that one tech grade 3, that Cruel Dragon, that Dauntless, that extra copy of the End, so you can, you know, Persona Blast. You can do whatever you want. So Nouvelle Roman is a great card. In addition, with Conroe, it gives you another really valuable option to filter for. You know, it's no longer search PG, that's it, or search filter. It's search for Nouvelle Roman if you have Nouvelle Vague. Keep messing up the pronunciation still. So you can search for for any grade 3 that you want. So yeah, definitely really great. We have Nouvelle Critic, which is if you have a Nouvelle Vague in your hand, Counterblast, or on your Vanguard circle, Counterblast 1 to retire one of your rear guards. This is key. Counterblast 1 to retire one is so amazing. In a world where starter retire is scarce, Nouvelle Critic does it for cheap, effective, and just really, really solid overall. We still play our Berserks because it's unconditional, just on play Counterblast to retire one grade 2 or less. Still great, still again a forerunner retire, and just, you know, overall get rid of your opponent's intercepts and go face more often. Still really good. Playing 3 Bellicosities because on hit on counter charge is really great as well. Again, your deck really needs a lot of Counterblast in order to have some firepower through Berserk or through Nouvelle Critics. So every single Counterblast actually matters a lot. And lastly, your key grade 2 Prowling Dragon Strike In. This unit can attack on the Vanguard circle, but when rolled upon, your Vanguard gets +5/+1 crit. Amazing synergy with the end. I think I've showcased this before. But even if you don't ride the end, even if you ride, you know, your other grade 3, like a Cruel Dragon earlier on, extra crit pressure on your turn 2 turn is amazing. If not, well, going on to Dauntless or Dragonic Overlord, still +5/+1 crit. You know, you get to catch up on that damage and kind of damage deny your opponent on your turn 2 turn. One thing that I think a lot of people misplay is, well, they get greedy with striking, right? Sometimes people, you know, don't really draw into your grade 3s. You just assume because of the ratios you will draw into your grade 3 eventually next turn. So you greedily ride strike in and you just hope for the best to draw into grade 3. And well, sometimes it happens, it works out, but many times if you don't have that grade 3, then you just assume that it'll work out. Well, too greedy. So please don't do that. If you don't have a grade 3 guaranteed you're in your hand, generally speaking, I'd not be as greedy. Just ride, you know, your Bellicosity, ride your Nouvelle Critic, and call it a day. At least if you miss your grade 3, you get to drive check. And if you haven't seen a grade 3 yet, it means that your grade 3 odds are pretty high. So just don't be greedy, please. Next up, we play For the Ends. I think this is pretty straightforward. On hit, Counterblast 2, Persona Blast stand, draw 2 cards. Your multi-attack option and your card advantage engine in Kagero. It is just amazing, especially with the Nouveau Roman, making the end Persona Blast much more consistent. We play 1 Dauntless Drive because I don't think that the Break Ride is that impactful yet. If you rely on it, discarding 3 means you're playing a very passive early mid game, which I'm not a big fan of, but it does work. It does work, I have to say that. I'd say that because of Nouveau Roman, if you find yourself, you know, hitting a lot of draw triggers or having a lot of dead cards, and you think that you can make that Dauntless Drive play, then Nouveau Roman can easily search for that 1 copy or maybe 2 copies of DDD that you want to play. But after the buff, I definitely do think that it's worth playing at 3 or 4, and it makes it a much more threatening break ride. And that is the biggest difference, because I feel like a lot of people are building their list based on JP lists, but DDD isn't buffed yet. You know, there is a reason why JP players didn't really favor DDD earlier on, as do I. It's because it's really, really expensive, and it's not explosive enough in many cases, because you don't even have the way to generate the card advantage to sustain that end game play where you discard 3, you Persona Blast, you do all that stuff in order to actually just multi-attack. Why not just go the end, hit, Counter Blast 2, Persona Blast, 3 stand, draw 2, maintain that early mid-game aggro, transition into Nouvelle Vague, and win the game, which is exactly the idea of Nouvelle Vague, right? Vanguard Circle, Counter Blast 3, Soul Blast 3, Persona Blast to retire all of your opponent's rear guards. You rarely will use this because it is quite a pricey skill, but when it happens, it is amazing. In addition, the most important part of the skill is Vanguard Circle during your turn. If you or your opponent has 5 or more damage, all of your opponent's trigger effects are nullified. This means bye-bye 6 damage heal. This means your late game push is much more consistent. No more fearing damage triggers, because you know that every single attack, if you are on 5, will hit on stage. So this is amazing. It's a great finisher. And a lot of people put a heal trigger on it. But instead, I play 4 Dragonic Overlords as my heal trigger. Vanguard Rigor Circle, Counter Blast 3, get +5, drive check -2, and the following ability until end of turn. Vanguard Rearguard on hit a rearguard, stand it. So why do I do this? Why do I do this? Why am I weird? I've honestly played a lot of different variations. I'll have to say I didn't play the Cruel Dragon variation, but if I had it, I'd probably replace it with DDD right now. But the reason why I don't believe in Nouvelle Vague with heal trigger at this moment is because unlike your Ganslots, unlike your Jelly Beans, Nouvelle Roman only returns your Nouvelle Vague to your deck if you are grade 2 or below, and it is a 2-card combo, not a 1-card combo. So it's too conditional to actually have it. In addition, I find that early game, if I get to actually hold on to the Nouvelle Vague and pull off the Nouvelle Critic early and snipe something really, really valuable, like, you know, your Silverthorn starter, like your Ammon starter, stuff like that, it is much more impactful than you know, just being able to trade one trigger for another. And I know that a lot of people will call me out for it, but I definitely do think that draw trigger Nouvelle Vague and actually keeping it in your hand is really great. I just find that, well, you can still go to your DN, you can still transition into your Nouvelle Vague consistently because you're keeping it in your hand. And if you really need that card advantage, you can always plop Nouvelle Roman and search for the next for trade in a draw trigger for a draw trigger. Just go with the end play. So that's just my thought. If you find that you draw into a lot of your Nouvelle Vagues, and you do tend to search for Nouvelle Roman and just return it, well, maybe it's just better to put a heal on it. But for me, I like to play really aggressively. I like to be able to use my Nouvelle Critics early, and so that's why I want to allocate a draw trigger on it and then make those plays earlier on. Cheap retires really, really good. But I also see value of putting it as a heal. Means that eventually you might draw into it, and then you can use your Nouvelle Critics in the late game. I just think that being able to use it early game and an unconditional retire at Catalyst 1 is just really, really amazing. And lastly, Dragonic Overlord, still a really great card on hit. You know, restand 16k. Pairs up well with Nouvelle Vague because your opponent won't be able to hit stages anymore. You know, 1 damage check from 4 to 5 won't put them to 21. They'll only be at 16 if your opponent's a Vanguard, grade 3 11k Vanguard. So then your Overlord will guarantee to swing 3 times. Your Vanguard is still going to be able to do stuff, and your rear column is still able to do stuff. So yeah, overall, that is kind of the idea of the build. Let me know down below what your build looks like. If you want to check out the different variations that I've tried, go check out my 2 of the top streams. I think I started playing this on day 2, and I played Kagero really frequently. I've definitely messed around with the list a lot, but this is honestly the build that I'm the most comfortable with, and I think I have the most success with in this current meta game. So again, JP lists, you know, not the exact same as global because they have some buffs and changes that we don't, and the metagame is quite different. So I think that's really, really important for you to understand that lists are really meta dependent and gameplay dependent, and don't just mindlessly copy JP lists, right? Don't mindlessly copy, you know, some content creators lists because maybe it's a different game, maybe it's a different meta, maybe it's a different perspective. So yeah, with that all said, let's go straight into the gameplay. So I think this deck is definitely quite consistent, and one of the weaknesses of this build, in my opinion, is the games are generally lengthier. You need to play it out, and you don't have really big explosive turns. But yeah, overall, I think just tossing the heal trigger is fine. We have the Nouvelles, grade 1, grade 2, which means that we can do some early game retires like we talked about. Strike In is your ideal grade 2 ride. Grade 1 ride, if you go first Gojo, or the filter is pretty nice if you... And the end is good. The end is probably my ideal grade 3 ride. We're just going to go for the Cursey, Nouvelle Roman, just in case you do draw into Nouvelle Vague. On turn 2, you can still return it. Yeah, I think definitely the end is still my ideal pick. Like, I've tried playing situations where I do like prioritize returning and teching the DDD, but most of the time you don't have the resources to actually use it properly, or maybe I'm too aggressive of a player to actually make use of it. So here we're gonna go strike in, pretty straightforward. We have the end. Considering conroying because our opponent could lock on hit. Yeah, new PG because I rarely see Link Jokers being like playing crits, except for Schwartz, and I think that we do need the damage to actually enable some plays later on. Though we do have the bellicosities. Yep, Mobius Breath. The end. Roman. So yeah, like here, grade 3 we have here. Like if we let's see if we can hit on flip, hit to top deck into the end and the end shenanigans. That's honestly shouldn't have boosted there because there is still a possibility that I draw trigger into the end and I get to restand. But yeah, that's a misplay. It's good that we see it out PG'd go to the damage zone. That's definitely really good. And yeah, one of the issues I have with like Heal Nouvelle Vague is if you draw into it after a grade 3 turn, you can't return it anyways. But yeah, Nebula locking the Gojo. So one of the things our opponent doesn't maybe not recognize is that Vanguard column only hits 15. So if they don't hit a trigger, then we're good to go. All right, solid. They can still proc it though. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I don't think we're gonna ride yet because we still have multiple DNs to check. So we can still use the we can still generate some card advantage by on hit Persona Blasting. Removal Critic Cannon Blast when retire is so good, so good, so good, so good. Call out a booster. Trigger. Nope. Wrong Overlord. Question 4. And we're not as well, even if your opponent's at Infinite Zero, I still do the same, but we're not as wary because our opponent doesn't have a front row locker at the moment. By the way, shout out to Bang Dream. Hope everyone is doing the surveys, getting your free sleeves and tags. So next turn, maybe we even go to Nouvelle Vague and try to seal the game. But it depends on where our opponent pushes us to. The 13k base of Nouvelle Vague actually does come in handy because it means that if your opponent can't hit stages, well, they can't hit you multiple times a turn because most decks are centered towards building that 11k, 16k, 21k columns right now. But unfortunately not for this matchup. Nebula does help your weak units hit numbers, so doesn't really work that way. Our opponent's a bit desperate with the intercepts, playing out the Singularity Sniper out so early. The end, okay, the draw trigger, of course. Draw trigger to heal trigger. 10+2 hits, puts us to 5. So I think this is the Nouvelle Vague turn. This is the Vague turn right there. Critic. Yeah, we're just gonna go for it. Overlord. Let's try to end the game here. Swing, swing. Again, if we're at 5, it means that no matter what our opponent checks, you know, they only show 3 triggers, but our 2 attacks are gonna pass. Let's see if we can get lethal here. Heal trigger, which kind of, you know, means that our opponent's damage trigger would pass, but okay, lucky. That didn't work out, so let's see if we can finish the game here. One last swing? No. So I guess luckily we hit the heal trigger or else we would have been dead. But yeah. Alright. Next turn, we still have 2 Canamas, so we can still use Nouvelle Critic to retire 1 front row. And see where we can go from there. Knight of Entropy. Really good Link Joker card. Canamas to lock any unit. Most likely a front row. Okay, 3 shots to face. But luckily we have 1 PG that we searched for earlier on. 10k self-damager. See, not being able to hit numbers because we're 13k. A bit ouch for our opponent here. Heal trigger, of course. Of course. PG, so I don't think our opponent has any PGs left, which is a promising. And we're at 5, which means that our opponent's damage triggers won't work anymore. And last time I checked, that's really, really good, right? 2 swings to face. Nouvelle Critic, retire. Boom. And even if they have a trigger, nullify that heal trigger, and then we go for game. Think it's over. Boom. Kai wins again. So that was pretty straightforward, I think. There were definitely misplays, you know, like sometimes you can still luckily check draw trigger into the end, and then you can restand and do stuff, especially on your striking turns. You should be careful with that. But overall, I think covered my kind of winning image. You know, you start with any grade 1 really other than your PG. You go into your striking, your grade 3 turn has crit pressure, and then you go to Nouvelle Vague to seal off the game. Dragonic Overlord, still a really cheap option to actually, you know, just multi-attack and clear up the board and go face. With supplement with Nouvelle Vague canceling triggers, it means that, you know, even 16 by itself is able to threaten for lethal when your opponent's at 4, which is really great. And even though we couldn't show how, you know, Nouvelle Roman can actually tech your DNs or your DDDs, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. If we had the Nouvelle Vague earlier on, we can Nouvelle Critic early, retire something key, even though there was nothing on your opponent's board, and then we can, you know, tech for the end with the grade 1, and then we can actually Persona Blast consistently because we have the unflippers to actually refund those damage that we used. So yeah, I think overall, deck is pretty solid. Do definitely try out Cruel Dragon. I was not able to try it out because I don't have a copy of it and I don't have mats to craft it, but definitely really cool. And again, please recognize that the global meta is not the JP meta. Global list is not the JP list because fundamentally the card text is different for some cards. So please understand that. And definitely do try things out. With Conroe, your grade 1 slot is so flexible. You definitely want to test out your ratios and try out different mixtures of PGs maybe, or, you know, maybe even try out some units that maybe help you hit bigger numbers, like the 6+3 grade 1 booster. So anyways, that is all for this video. Thank you all so much. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all soon. Bye.